Now, I tried to speak to the president of the Australian Rugby Union in South Africa twice on this. I can name the occasions. And both times he said, I know it's rotten, but we're still going to play them.
Anthony Abrams faces an almost impossible task. He's trying to wake up Australian rugby. He's trying to convince the people who play it, watch it and run it that even to accept the South African tour is to condone racism. Rugby administrators say they want to keep politics out of the game. The players, and particularly those here at Abrams' old club, Sydney University, are franker. The ones who support the tour say rugby's too important to them, more important than apartheid. That conflict between principle and pleasure threatens to repeat these scenes at Australian ovals over the next few weeks. This was the last Springbok tour of Britain.
Nobody has advocated violence. As far as sitting down on the pitch is concerned, which I think probably will take place, as it did in Britain, this is classical Gandhi stuff. It's militant non-violence. And if anybody says that this is denying people rights, I think the only answer to this is that compared with the denial of rights that you're acquiescing in by going to the games, by supporting these tours, it's a very minor denial of rights indeed. I'm afraid of any situation that is going to involve violence. I don't condone it, and either, as far as I know, does anybody else involved in this opposition to the tour. I think that violence could take place if, as happened in England, rugby union stewards take it upon themselves to act as vigilantes and to lay into people.
Rupert Rosenblum on the left is the perfect example of Abrams' dilemma. They have almost identical backgrounds of private school, university, law careers and, most importantly, rugby. Both men played for Australia on a tour of South Africa. But that's where the similarity ends.
Agree with me that when you play against South Africa, you are standing up in the sporting sphere and saying, we support the idea of racism in sport.
Well,
We're
I don't
at least
agree, no.
accepting this.
You're presuming a lot of things that I'm supposed to agree with you on, which I'm not agreeing with you at all on. To me, if some bloke in Kenya or some man even in England, an educated Western society, a man from Oxford University, considers that my playing against the Springboks makes me condone racism, or my act is one of condoning of racism, the man's a nut. It's just not on. I don't feel that way. You know I don't feel that way. In fact, you know quite well I have a strong feeling for the coloured ladies. So how people, people who know me, and these are the people that I do care about, if they know that I'm not a racist, I'm happy with that. I'm not a racist. It's not my fault that our government, we have this overseas image. I'm not the government. I can't do anything about the government. I'd like to do plenty.
You know full well that you are in a position here to do something about it, and you also said to me once that you recognise that one couldn't really take a neutral point of view in this. Whichever way you jump, whether you decide not to play against them or whether you decide to play against them, you are doing something positive. Because of the introduction of apartheid into sport, you are, when you're playing against South Africa, accepting racism in the sporting sphere.
Well, and you see, you cut me off before, and I've got to go back to the point that you didn't let me make, and I'll now make it, is that somewhere along the line you have to draw up a list of priorities for you, for you as an individual, what is important in life.
Put as
no,
the
hang on, I haven't
highest
finished again. I haven't finished again. Let me keep going, please. Now, if I was to draw up a list of things, for me, South Africa, apartheid, racism, comes very, very low in the list of things that I consider are wrong in this world, and I think there are greater things in the world that are wrong, that will lead to greater disharmony amongst the nations than South Africa. Oh, rights of man, non-recognition of China,
Doesn't this involve
Vietnamese
the rights of
war.
man? You know that South Africa has refused to sign the Declaration of Human Rights, for example.
Yes, well, I also know that in Melbourne, a couple of years ago, you couldn't hand out pamphlets, and that's pretty close to home because they said this was wrong, and people did something. But I'm more concerned with the things that go on in this country. There's so many things wrong with Australia.
But hasn't Jim Roxburgh told you, or one of the others, that we see on this tour issue the chance to raise the whole question of racism in Australia? Haven't they told you that we've got Aborigines sitting on all the committees in all the states, that we've set up against these tours, and they are there because they see that this is a support of racism, that it's just entrenching what already exists in Australia. In other words, that it is equally as important from the Australian point of view as from the South African point of view that we oppose these tours.
Well, let's just answer. I won't answer for myself this time. I'll answer for the 15 guys that may be selected, and I won't be one of them, that are going to play in that first test against South Africans. And they don't care about politics. They're not political beings. I did government for 1 year at the university. It's something like, what, 5% of the population are politically aware, and I don't think these rugby players are, and I don't think anything you can do can make them politically aware.
But and you are, aren't you?
Oh yes, I hope I'm politically aware.
Now,
but
if you are politically aware, and if you agree with me, why aren't you making
Because
a stand?
in my list of priorities, it's too low. It's a simple matter of priorities. You have to put them somewhere in life, and that happens to be down the bottom.
Do you think that that represents pretty adequately the Australian point of view on this?
Yes, I do. I really do.
Well, don't you think this is sad?
Oh, I think I'm a sad case, eh? You know, I admit that I have a certain hypocritical approach to this. But I think if you and other people doing this realise that there is a list of priorities that everyone has, and this can be at the bottom, perhaps you'll get better understanding of their approach and not probably so or anti these other people who don't agree.
I don't think it's so much we're anti them. We do understand this approach, and this is, of course, why I came to Australia and why the others have made the stand, because we think that the priorities should be reversed.
Well, this is why I support you. I think you have the right to do it. It's just that you're having a lot of difficulty changing mine.
Please purchase your ticket from the change box on your right, just around the corner. $1.50 for the hour.
You really feel proud when you run out there. You know, everybody in South Africa knows about the game, and they think about you, and they want you to do well. So it's a great responsibility, really.
I think it's every young schoolboy's or man who plays rugby in South Africa's ambition to play for his country. So it's a great honour to play for South Africa.
Well, this is my first tour in the Springboks overseas, and it's a tremendous thrill, especially touring with a team of friends. I think we've got a very, very happy tour, and this probably makes all the difference. Not only an honour, this is an incredible privilege, really. To wear that green and gold of South Africa is quite a thing. It's something which is very hard to explain, but it's certainly sort of heartwarming and very thrilling to play for South Africa. It's very difficult to explain your thoughts as you go on the field. There's a tremendous build-up to a big game, playing for South Africa. And when you go into the field, you're incredibly keyed up. And your only thought, I should think, when you go in the field is that, well, boys, I'm with you. You know, you realise all the time it's a team game, and the only thought that you have is not to let your side down and really to give you your best.
But as soon as you get onto the field, you know exactly what to do. You know what the prime job is on the field, and everything just disappears.
Well, obviously, you play the game to win, and you want to play with the team, as a team, and you play to win, that's it. You know, you're sort of spoken into the game, and team talks and what have you, and your mind is trained to winning. And that's what we came here for, to play rugby and to win.
I think it's given a lot of people a lot of pleasure to watch them. As young fellows who excel at the sport, they've got every right to come to this country. They're invited to Australia. Their passport is stamped with an Australian visa. That automatically entitled them to every privilege and protection that the law of this country entitles them to. They were virtually on the same footing as Australia, because we accepted them as equal citizens once they got that stamp on their passport. And it's deplorable and execrable that they should be treated the way they have been. They've been manipulated. The demonstrators have been manipulated by people who have political bias and who've seized this pretext to try to make some political mileage.
I think the demonstrations have been very effective, mainly because they've got a lot of people thinking, and they've got a lot of things going, especially at university, not only against Springboks, but also for Aboriginals here in Australia.
You know, when the smoke bomb came out, or the smoke bombs come out in the field, we sort of all gather into a group and we chat about the game to get our minds back on the game and off from the demonstrators. And when the smoke bomb came on, I got into the group and chatted about the game, about the mistakes we just made, and it didn't worry me at all.
When I played and I saw the first smoke bombs coming on, we just had to cut ourselves completely off from it and get on with the game.
I think the demonstrators make you concentrate a lot harder on the field. I should think positionally, people may differ. I play full-back, and I think this is a position which requires a lot of concentration in the field. And the more noise there is, the better I like it. It makes me concentrate a lot harder.
Most of the demonstrators we've had to deal with are opposed to law and order, and that is the issue. They are there to provoke you, mainly to get you to do something wrong because you are representing the law, which they are now challenging. The apartheid issue is just the excuse.
Well, they call out obscenities. They say your mother's a prostitute, you're a pig. But then we've got to retain ourselves, and it's a very hard thing to do because you feel that you're losing your manhood. We've got to sacrifice our principles and our vanity. Every man has a certain amount of admiration for himself as a man. But when you hear a person sing out these obscenities, you've got to contain yourself, because if you go to arrest them, that's what they want you to do, so they can then accuse police of police brutality. I've seen them stand there, be abused, be ridiculed, and if my brother ever thought that I stood there in front of those crowd of people and allowed to call my mother a prostitute, I then go home to my home and my brother would say to me, well, what a great fella you are. You stood there tonight and you allowed that fella call your mother a prostitute. In most instances, when you go to arrest a man, he's struggling. You try to arrest him by the most safeguard method, but you only use sufficient force as to restrain him from resisting arrest.
When policemen are effecting arrest, it is the object of the person whom they're arresting to escape. And perhaps by escaping, they may use violence and punching a policeman, kicking a policeman. They pretend they're getting hit, and they scream out, women scream out. They do some terrible things just to say that there was police brutality. They will try to attack the policeman by kicking him in the private parts. Women will grab him by the hair, take his cap, spit in his face, anything to emphasise police brutality.
Yes, there are certainly those in the force who want to take the law into their own hands. In relation to demonstrations, of course, they are a new thing in this society to us, and I don't think that we're quite ready to handle them. And in these circumstances, there has been some violence. In instances, there would have been excessive violence. These police have been challenged in the streets over their authority, and I don't think they're quite ready for this kind of challenge. Every time these people have gone into the streets to challenge, they've had the avenues closed to them. When people continually close avenues to people who want to demonstrate peacefully, they become more violent. They're violent demonstrators, and they're a violent police.
I've seen the police with clubs charging at demonstrators. I've seen them hit people. They've been hitting quite a few on the shoulders, not very many on the head. In Melbourne, I saw a police horse trample a 12-year-old boy who was in hospital seriously ill. In Sydney, I saw them drag kids. They just threw them straight into the barbed wire. In Canberra, it was just as bad. Wherever the demonstrators have gone, the police have been bad. We're here, we're opposing what the Springboks stand for. The police have to protect the government interest, therefore they charge us. If we look as though we're going to become effective, then they have to, just like now with this guy's telling us to move along, we're not obstructing anyone, but he wants to sort of push us out of the way, give us as little effect as possible.
I believe some police are by nature violent, have succumbed to the idea of authority and nothing more. And I honestly believe that some police are so filled with hatred that the only way they can express the hatred is by violence. I agree, possibly police have been insulted. Nevertheless, I think that police have a duty. If police cannot control themselves against insults, they shouldn't be policemen.
Australian Rugby Union feel that the demonstrators have had no real effect on the tour. It's quite possible that they might have kept a few people away in the early stages when perhaps people were afraid of what might happen. Well, I don't know about this show of force. All the police have done in any state is enforce law and order. In other words, give the great majority of people the right to watch games in freedom and comfort, which is their right as citizens. If you believe that law and order should prevail, then you don't mind how many police you use. If you believe that a minority group can create anarchy in the community, then you'll say the police shouldn't be used. Of course, I believe in the former. I believe in law and order.
Final scores in the second test match between South Africa and Australia. South Africa 14, Australia 6. We would ask all patrons of rugby to give 3 rousing cheers to our South African friends.
Given the chance, what would you like to do to a demonstrator?
Smile at him.
Well, I say if they want to have their say, let them have their say. That's about as far as it goes,
Well, I just feel that they sort of barking up the wrong tree. I think it's just got nothing to do with us. We had to play rugby, and that's what we had to do.
Why do you think some Australians oppose the tour?
Well, I don't know. No comment. I don't want to talk about anything like that.
What's your opinion of the demonstrators?
Well, as I said, I don't want to talk about any demonstrators or anything like that. It's, I ignore them. I mean, that's all I can say.
Can you tell me, have the demonstrations in any way affected the team's performance throughout the tour?
Well, at the beginning, yes, but it took us quite a time to get used to them. There were some places where we got very little sleep, but it became better and better as the tour progressed.
What chances do you think the cricket tour has of going ahead as scheduled?
Well, to tell you the truth, I wouldn't at this stage give my opinion about the cricket tour, which will start here in October. People are discussing the tour, and I think I'll leave it to the administrators. It depends entirely, naturally, on circumstances which may develop later on.
Would you like to hazard a guess at this stage whether it will go on or off?
Well, I hope it will take place, because I think that Australia and South Africa must keep up our relations. We must keep on competing against each other in all kinds of sport.
Do you think this is the last Springboks tour we've seen here, or will there be others?
No, this is now the 50th year that South Africa and Australia have played against each other, and I hope it'll be another 50 years. We'll make it a century.
Do you think there's any prospect in the future of the Springboks ever playing against a team of mixed colour?
Well, no, I wouldn't comment on that, because that is now the internal policy of South Africa, and I'm not going to say anything about that. In any case, I think the people should come to South Africa and find out themselves what the conditions are. They'll probably be able to understand much better the circumstances in South Africa.
People suffering, Lord. Kumbaya. People suffering, Lord. Kumbaya. Oh Lord, Kumbaya. Oh Lord, Kumbaya.
From the viewpoint of the Australian Council of Churches, from the beginning to the end, the rugby tour has represented basically a moral issue. And we're disturbed that it's become confused by clashes between police and demonstrators, politicians coming in with their own axe to grind. To us, it's a serious moral issue. Here's a country with 20 million people, and 80% of those people are disfranchised. They're in literally a police state. They have no right of expression of opinion, and morally and elsewise they're in a pretty sick condition. From a moral point of view, I think Australians are now looking at race more keenly than they've ever done before. I think to this extent the demonstrations have made a good point. We're much more sensitive about our Aboriginal treatment now. I hope we'll be more sensitive about our immigration policy now. I think in this sense there's a good legacy. I believe that in a world context the demonstrators are with the conscience of the world. 7/8 of our population in the world are non-white. To them, this rugby tour represents exported white racism. The United Nations has spoken, world sporting bodies have spoken. The demonstrators are with the strength in world conscience today, and I think Australians should note this.
You asked the question, what are we haven't done much about the Aboriginal question in the past. Now, a lot of people are asking this, but no one ever asked the question until we started the anti-apartheid demonstration.
They're in our society right through the world, there are the same questions being asked, that there is a conscientious sincerity in these people. Okay, at the present time, the arrival of the Springboks has allowed this to be released. Perhaps it hasn't been expressed very strongly before, but this particular thing has probably educated people to a conscientious judgment about it in a way that has never happened before.
The people should look at their own backyard first, clean up this country first before participating in overseas affairs.
The rest of the world looks at Australians and knows them for what they are.
I don't think this is the way to protest about that. It's not a civilised, educated way to protest.
What's your opinion of the demonstrators as a whole?
You really want to know? Hairy goons. Hairy goons, mate.
Gutter snipes. Out. Finished.
Finished.
Yeah? They put the Liberal Party in for the next 20 years.
Oh, there's just a lot of mob of idiots. Stupid. Stupidity, that's all it is.
My opinion of the demonstrators, I think they crystallised political opinion very strongly against the people who were organising them. Very strongly.
In what way?
Well, people don't like to be pushed around, you like to have your civil rights and everything else. No one likes to go to any sort of football match you like to see.
Do you think the cricket tour will go ahead as scheduled?
No, I don't.
Why not?
I don't, because I think that it's so easily politically, professionally disturbed.
I've got a feeling it won't, because I think it's harder to control 3 or 4 or 5 days than 40 minutes or 80 minutes.
What do you think of they want to put them on the football field and play against them?
Well, I don't think it's proving very much at all, because I think people are so steeped in their own racism that they can't even see these issues, and I don't think they can even read, let alone think about them.
I think they're absolutely disgraceful. Shocking.
Why?
Why?
Yes.
Well, I'll ask you why.
No, I'd like to know your opinion, sir.
Well, I think it's a shocking demonstration by a lot of radical louts.
You don't believe in their
No, I do not.
I think they'll go home to their great, well-fed stomachs tonight, to their piggy little wives, and they won't think twice about it. They think it's funny. I think it's funny that blacks are dying. I think it's funny that people have got time to stand out in the street with pamphlets. I don't think they'd give a 2-minute thought. I don't think they'd give a bugger about anyone but themselves. And for that reason, I seriously doubt that we can do any good, because I just don't think we have the power to penetrate them.
People suffering, Lord, kumbaya. Oh Lord, kumbaya. Oh Lord, kumbaya.
Blacks are people, Lord,
kumbaya. Blacks are people, Lord,
and a key.
Kumbaya.
Racist.
Kumbaya. Oh Lord, kumbaya. Oh Lord, kumbaya. Kumbaya. Blacks are people, Lord, kumbaya.
a city or state team in a few months' time. But then you can't knock that old-time religion.